For this, now I would like to introduce CA Tushar Agarwal ji and CA Gitika Srivastav ji from team of Tatvam Advisors. Again, on our platform, all the subscribers of YouTube would be knowing them both, that they are always benefiting the audiences of Webtel and the subscribers. So I'll just go through a brief introduction of Tusharji and Gitikaji. Else I'll go with the introduction of their firm Tatvam Advisors, which is a 1 year old firm and is doing great things, has have presence in Delhi, Mumbai and Bangalore and also NCR. Don't judge them by the firm and their age, but they have big top corporate clients. And as Tusharji has more than 15 years of experience, has served at LKS, one of the best faculties and speakers in GST. Also, Gitika ji has more than 10 years of experience, has also worked with LKS and is now partner at the Tatvam Advisors. So over to you, Tusharji and Gitika, for the indirect taxation and the amendments relating to that.
Thank you so much, Shubham, for your warm welcome. I want to share my screen. Can you stop? We want to present some slides.
Yes, sir, over to you. I hope you can do it now.
Just a second.
The screen is visible, Tusharji.
I'm just putting in full screen mode.
Yeah. Yeah, it's visible.
Thank you. Yes, so there are a couple of amendments which have been brought under the indirect tax law, both GST law and customs law. So we will be dealing with some of the specific and selected amendments considering the timelines, and it will be broadly an overview of all such amendments. So before the first, we will start with the GST amendments. So before we discuss various GST amendments which have been proposed under the CGST Act or the IGST Act, it is very important to note that all such amendments which have been proposed or in which we will be discussing in another 15 minutes will be implemented only from the date which is to be notified. So practically what happens, the budget, the finance bill which have been presented today, it's not only the center who has to pass the bill, but practically all the state legislature has to pass similar SGST Act. Even if we see the past, the CGST Amendment Act 2018, the amendments therein got actually notified with effect from 1st February 2019. In the CGST Act Amendment 2019, the amendments which were proposed there were practically implemented from 1 January 2020. And in fact, some of the amendments are yet to be implemented. So all these amendments will be notified in due course of time. We will first start with the amendments proposed under the CGST Act. The first amendment impacts all my clubs, associations who are providing goods and services to their members. Why there was a need for such kind of amendment? There was a Supreme Court case in the case of Calcutta Club Limited, wherein the Supreme Court held that in the context of sales tax law, that any incorporated or unincorporated club, when they provide goods to their members, it will not come under the purview of sale. Similarly, they made certain observation in respect of service tax also, and ultimately upheld the provision of doctrine of mutuality. If we see the 39th agenda, 39th GST Council meetings agenda, there the council specifically, I am just putting the exact extract, recognize that GST on supplies of goods or services by an incorporated or incorporated entity to its member may become a subject matter of litigation. There is no provision which stipulates that an unincorporated or incorporated entity and its member shall be distinct person. So what they have done is that in this amendment, they have come out with a specific provision wherein they have deemed that all my clubs, association and its members, like the wording they have used is all the person and its members will be deemed to be different entities, will be deemed as different purpose, and accordingly any transactions between them will be taxable. So it will have it is basically creating a charge on all my clubs or my associations and ending the dispute and overcoming the ratio of this amendment. The first amendment relates to that in the provisions of the definition of supply. The second most talked amendment is with regard to GST audit and GST annual returns. Section 35(5), it deals with GST audit. It provides that every registered person has to get its account audited by a chartered accountant. They have omitted this section. In this bill, they are proposing to omit this section. Simultaneously, section 34, which provides for filing of annual return, what they have done is that they are substituting this particular section and they are saying that it is now the taxpayer who shall furnish an annual return, which may include a self-certified reconciliation statement between your returns and your audited financial statements. So now what they are doing is that they are omitting section 35(5), which provides for GST audit. They are substituting section 44, and now the onus to furnish annual return along with this reconciliation statement is on the management of the company. So there is still a requirement of filing annual return after reconciliation of supplies declared in GST returns with your financial statement, but no certification from chartered accountant is required. Instead, it's a self-certification by the management, which they have to undertake. In fact,
Tusharji, I think it is a prospective amendment. So for
yes,
1920,
so I will
people
coming to that
have
only.
point.
So, right,
Yeah.
that's a very important point. See, this will not be applicable for GST audit 1920. So all those professionals, my friends, whosoever is actually undertaking, including our firm, GST audit of 19 and 20, it will continue the same way. Even for 2021, we are of the view, considering the trend, these dates are notified, etc. The history says that all such dates are notified only in the next year. So all such amendments which are proposed now, we believe that it will take time for the state to pass the act, etc. Therefore, these provisions may be implemented from 1st of January 2020. So there are high chances that even for 2021, these audits by chartered accountant will continue. So it may be applicable from 21-22, and we are hopeful that for 2021, they may this certification from chartered accountant may continue. Another important amendment is under the input tax provisions under section 16. In the section 16(2), there are multiple conditions for availing credit. Now what they have done is that they have added one more condition. The condition is that the supplier should upload the invoice details in his outward supplies, that is GSTR1, which will get auto-populated to the recipient. So what was happening was that this condition they have actually implemented by way of implementation of 2A 3B reconciliation and implementation of Rule 36(4). Today, as we stand, we are aware that as per Rule 36(4), I can claim credit of only those invoices which are auto-populated, plus a margin of 5% is given. So as a lawyer, what we used to contend is that this Rule 36(4) is ultra vires the act. Under the act, there is no condition that the invoice has to be uploaded in GSTR1. Now, people even started challenging the virus of Rule 36(4). And now this amendment has been brought to curb and to give strength to the Rule 36(4). And now it is very important for all the taxpayer to note that filing of GSTR1 and uploading the invoices by the supplier in GSTR1 is one of the necessary conditions for availing credit. If it is not visible to you in 2A, then this condition is getting breached. I will read the exact extract from the agenda of 39th council meeting basis which this amendment has been proposed. Section 16 of the CGST Act provides for conditions and restrictions subject to which the input tax credit shall be credited to the electronic credit ledger. It would be logical to complete this linkage of outward supplies declared by the supplier with the tax liability by also limiting the credit availed in 3B to that reflected in GSTR 2A of the recipient, subject to additional amount of 5% available under Rule 36(4). So this important condition added under input tax credit provisions. Hence, our 2A 3B reconciliation becomes very, very important. All are technical grounds for challenging those conditions. There were multiple grounds. Fewer grounds have been addressed through this amendment. Remaining grounds still there. Another important amendment is the retrospective amendment in under section 50, which deals with the interest provision. We all were aware that with effect from 1st September 2020, I was supposed to pay interest only on the net cash liability which I was discharging. If my 3B output turnover liability was 100 rupees, my credit was 80 rupees, I filed return delay. So I was supposed to pay tax only on 20 rupees after 1st September 2020. Now, However, because of technical problem, etc., they could not have issued a notification making this amendment retrospective of paying interest on net basis. Now, by virtue of this amendment in the Act, they are clearly saying that interest has to be paid on net basis. So it is crystal clear that government view is that all your interest liability has to be paid on net cash basis, not on the gross liability. Another important and very important change made under the provisions related to detention, seizure, and release of goods and vehicles. So practically what used to happen, the current provision was, if the vehicle is inspected by the officer, stopped by the officer, he generally impose the demand to the extent of the tax payable on such goods plus penalty equal to the 100%. So if under an invoice, the invoice is of 100 rupees and the tax amount is 18 rupees, all our detention order, we will say they will issue a demand of 18 rupees, they will issue a penalty of 18 rupees. Now what they have changed is that they have removed the tax, payment of tax under the provision of section 129. And they have specifically said, they have made it like a penal provision and said that in such situation, the taxpayer has to pay 200% of the tax amount as penalty. So now, presently what is happening, you are paying 18 rupees as tax, 18 rupees as penalty. Henceforth, you will be paying 36 rupees as penalty. And any tax which you want to pay under your returns only. So when a truck is stopped, when your vehicle is stopped by the officer and the demand is issued, you have to pay 200% amount of the tax payable as penalty, which is a major change. They have reworded the entire provision to make it a penal provision. Corresponding to the changes under 129, they have made changes under appeal provisions also, that if you want to file an appeal against such detention order, you have to pay at least 25% of the penalty before filing an appeal. If you don't file if you want to file an appeal against such demand order, pay 25% as penalty. And corresponding changes have been made in section 74, so and so forth. They have also de-linked section 129 and 130. That's an important change. Similarly, they have made changes in another provisions related to section 75, 168, 83, so and so forth. We are not drilling much into such provisions. We will now move on to the amendments under the IGST Act. First amendment under the IGST Act is with regard to supplies to SEZ. Presently, supplies to SEZ is a zero-rated supply. Now, the amendment proposed is that supply of goods or services or both for authorized operation to an SEZ will only be treated as a zero-rated supply. So until and unless the SEZ is using such goods and services for authorized operation, zero-rated benefit will not be available. What do you mean by authorized operation? The term is defined under the SEZ Act, and which says that the operation which have been authorized under this Act. And when we see the SEZ Act, we will see that whenever an SEZ is formed, an approval is taken from the Development Commissioner, they give a letter of approval. In letter of approval, they define what are the operations which an SEZ unit has to undertake. So I have to make sure that whatever goods and services I am supplying to SEZ, it should be for the operations of the SEZ, the authorized operation which are mentioned under the letter of approval. It is very necessary for all of us to undertake undertaking from the SEZ unit along with the copy of letter of approval to safeguard our supplies as zero-rated supplies. A major change. Another important change, having a big impact on most of the exporters. Today, whenever I'm exporting goods and services, I have two options under section 16(3). First, I can export on payment of duty and claim refund. Second, I can export without payment of duty under LUT and claim refund of the accumulated ITC. These two provisions are applicable as of now. Now, what they are doing, like what are the proposal? First, they are saying that the option provided today of exporting goods without payment of IGST and claiming refund of ITC will continue as it is. So they have substituted this section 16(3). They are saying that this option of exporting without IGST and claiming ITC refund continues as it is. However, we are specifically linking this refund with your realization of sales proceed. If you don't realize your sales proceed within the stipulated time period, then within 30 days, you have to refund back the amount which you claimed as refund along with interest. So that's an important change which they have brought. They are continuing with the ITC refund provision. Second, they are linking it with the realization of foreign receipt, what they actually did in Rule 96B. So we all used to say Rule 96B is ultra virus because there is no enabling section. Now they have inserted this condition in the section itself. Coming to my next option, which was given to the exporter of supplying and exporting with payment of IGST. Please note that they are doing away with this option and limiting it to notified class of person and notified class of goods. So as of now, once this provision is implemented, I cannot export on payment of the IGST and claim the refund automatically, which is coming out of the system. It will be applicable only for those notified class of persons or notified class of goods, which they will notify. In all other cases, I have to opt for exporting without ITC and claiming without output tax and claiming refund of ITC. So again, it's a very important change. And the major reason for such change is the fake ITC problem. What they are is saying that people take fake ITC, they export on payment of IGST and get the refund automatically. They want to stop that and limit it to notified person or notified class of goods. So that's an important change brought by the budget 2021 today. Now we will move to the changes proposed under the customs law.
Good evening, everyone. We would have seen that there are a lot of changes that have been introduced under the IDT law as such, and IDT itself includes the customs. Considering the paucity of time, we will be touching upon very primary and key changes, which is going to affect the industry at large, while there are various legislative as well as the procedural changes that have been brought under the customs law. The first one being very important, till date, when you were importing your goods, you could file your bill of entry after the import of goods. Now there is a requirement of advance filing of bill of entry, and so whenever you are importing your goods, you'll have to ensure that you, before your goods are being cleared from the customs, you have to file the bill of entry beforehand and do the compliances accordingly. Second important change that has come under the customs law is about the withdrawal of the conditional exemptions. This is something in a layman language, if I would say, it's something like putting a sunset clause to all the conditional exemptions which are existing as on date. In the law, they have very categorically mentioned that any exemption which is there for which you have a conditional benefit, those exemptions will expire within 2 years, and when the 2 years will be ending on the 31st March from the date on which those exemptions were granted. And any exemption, conditional exemption notification which is prevailing on the date when the finance bill is passed, those exemptions will have a sunset clause of 31st March 2023. So maybe as a taxpayer, we'll have to look back to all the exemptions which we are claiming today and for how long we'll be able to claim those exemptions. Next change is very important change for all the exporters. Like we have seen that there are some changes which are coming from the GST law. There's an important change which has come under the customs law as well. Any person who is exporting the goods and taking the rebate route, taking the refund of the taxes that are paid on the export, the customs law has categorically introduced a section 114 AC, wherein any person who has taken any ITC by fraudulent means, which is what we in general terms say, the basis of any fake invoices or incorrect invoices, and utilize that ITC to pay the taxes and trying to encash the refund, the taxes in the form of refund the outward, the penalty has been imposed almost to the equivalent of 5 times of the refund that you have claimed. So it's a warning for all the taxpayers who are following such practices. We'll have to be very careful, whatever taxes, whatever credits you are claiming, and of course, when tomorrow the law is amended under GST law for some specified categories, the law will be prevailing or applicable to them as well. Another thing, for ease of doing the compliances, the custom portal is going to introduce a common electronic portal, something similar to what we have in GST. There'll be all online documentations, the procedures and all will be put on there through the portal. So a lot of faceless transactions would happen, orders and all the filing of bill of entry, registrations, etc. Everything will take place on this common portal. Next important change, which our Honorable Finance Minister has also touched upon during a finance budget speech, that there is going to be a revamping of our customs tariff. A new customs tariff is going to be introduced, which is going to be aligned with the HSN 2022. It's a new harmonized nomenclature, which will be going to be introduced worldwide. And India, to be aligned with this HSN classification, needs to revamp its existing customs tariff. So this customs tariff is going to see a change with a lot of around 351 amendments coming in the tariff. So we, as a taxpayer, have to be very careful to look back at the tariff when the new tariff is coming. I'll just quickly touch upon the changes that have happened on the BCD rates. The major sectors, there are, like in the speech, the finance minister, she wanted to touch upon that we want to enhance the capacity of the domestic production. But how is that possible? By curbing the imports. So by increasing the rates, the BCDs on the imported products, this kind of a platform is being provided for the domestic production or the manufacturers. The major sectors which are going to be affected because of this, or maybe I would say this, which will boom the domestic production, would be the gems and jewelry sector, the electronic sector, automobiles, textiles, as well as the mobile sector. Some implications will also happen to the renewable energy sector, where you are importing a lot of solar panels and solar lamps, inverters, etc. The basic customs duty has been increased almost 4 times in such sector. Just to curb the import of these products and to ensure that the domestic manufacturers are given a level playing field. There has been some reductions also, while there has been an increase in the import, but in order to support some sectors to set up their domestic production, there is a reduction in the BCD rates, which is mainly in the metal sector. Again, the gems and jewelry sector, the rates for the silver, gold, the coins, etc. have been reduced. Textile sector, one major product, which is the nylon, fiber and yarn, there is a reduction from 7.5% to 5%. There was another third category wherein this change was made, which is mainly just a tariff change. Effective rate of the customs duty which you are paying remains the same. That has been taken care of by giving the corresponding exemption notification. This is mainly in the electrical sector, the goods falling under Chapter 84, 85 and 90. Another important development that has happened in the customs law is the introduction of AIDC, which is Agriculture Infrastructure and Development Cess. This was mainly implemented or invoked, or I would say imposed on the specific goods. The only purpose of imposing this cess is to provide some infrastructure and development support to the agriculture. This rate goes from 1.5% to 100%. And this will be collected like a duty of customs. And just to ensure that the burden of this additional tax is not passed on to the end consumer, the BCD has been lowered to some effect, so as to reduce the impact of this increase. There's a social welfare surcharge which will also be levied on the AIDC. However, there's an exemption which has been granted on the gold and silver.